Harper Robinson commanded boardrooms and skylines alike, a billionaire whose every decision reshaped industries. But on that relentless rainy Thursday evening, as his sleek black sedan paused at a flickering red light in Brooklyn, a glimpse through the fogged window unraveled his ironclad world. There, huddled beneath a dripping bus stop shelter, sat a woman cradling 3 shivering toddlers in threadbare blankets. Her cardboard sign, smeared but legible, pleaded, "Please help. Need food for my babies." One of the little ones whimpered softly, burrowing deeper into her side. "It'll be all right, my loves," she whispered, her voice cracking with exhausted tenderness as she smoothed a curl from the child's forehead. Harper's pulse stuttered. That profile, etched in his memory despite the years and grime. It was impossible, yet undeniable. Sheila Dawson, the artist who'd pierced his armored heart 8 years prior, the one who'd vanished with a cryptic note. "I'm sorry, Harper. It's better this way." He'd admired her fire, her unyielding spirit. She'd seen past his wealth to the man beneath. And now this? He leaned forward, rain lashing the glass. Sheila lifted her head, those soft brown eyes weary, but piercing straight through him. Harper's breath fogged the window. The triplets, identical, mixed-race curls matted, grey-green eyes mirroring his own, stared back with innocent confusion. The driver cleared his throat. "Sir, lights green. Rough out there tonight." "Pull over," Harper commanded, voice steady but laced with urgency. He stepped into the downpour, bespoke suit be damned, umbrella forgotten in the rush. Water soaked through instantly as he approached. "Sheila? Hi, my beautiful family. Let me begin with a prayer straight from the heart. Dear God, please bless every soul watching this video. Fill their lives with peace, joy, and endless love. Amen. Welcome back, my people. You are not just viewers. You are my light during the dark days, and my reason to keep going. To all new family members, welcome to the family. Please subscribe to the channel and introduce yourself in the comments. I truly want to know more about you. My beloved family, every story I bring is not just words, it is my sweat, my sleepless nights, and my sacrifice. When you leave early, it cuts deep as if my hard work is unseen and my voice unheard. Please stay till the end. I love you. Now let's begin the story. She froze, lips parting in a silent gasp. Tears mingled with rain on her cheeks, shock, shame, a flicker of buried warmth. "Harper?" For a beat, the storm swallowed everything else. Then she shook her head, pulling the children closer. "Go. We're managing. You shouldn't." "What happened to you?" he pressed, kneeling to eye level, ignoring the puddle seeping into his knees. One triplet sniffled from the cold, another rubbed hungry eyes. The third clung silently, wide-eyed at the stranger. Sheila averted her gaze, voice barely above the rain. "It doesn't matter. Please just leave us." But Harper saw the truth in their frail frames, the desperation etched in her tremble. "You're not managing. Not like this." His tone brooked no argument, compassion overriding the ache of old wounds. "Come with me. All of you. I'll get you warm, fed now." "I can't accept," she started, protest weak. "I'm not asking," he cut in gently but firmly. "The kids need this. You need this." She searched his face, hesitation crumbling under his resolute stare. No choices left on that unforgiving street. Harper shrugged off his coat, draping it over the nearest child, then extended a hand. Sheila took it reluctantly, her grip cold and tentative. He scooped one drowsy triplet into his arms while she gathered the others. His driver popped the door. They slid into the heated leather interior, a stark contrast to the chill outside. As the car pulled away, the triplets nodded off against Sheila's shoulders, exhausted breaths evening out. Harper stared ahead, city lights blurring in the rain, mind a whirlwind of lost years and impossible truths. The drive to his Manhattan penthouse stretched in heavy silence. Sheila gazed out at the passing neon, lost in shadows. Harper stole glances. How had the vibrant painter he'd loved ended up broken on a curb? The mansion's gates loomed, warm glow spilling from manicured grounds like a foreign dream. "You don't have to," she began as they arrived. "No more excuses, Sheila. Inside. Food, rest, everything." He helped her out, carrying a child again, overriding her unease with quiet authority. The doorman nodded discreetly. Harper barked orders for guest suites, hot meals, and pediatric essentials. In the sprawling living room, he stoked the fireplace himself, flames dancing to chase the damp. Sheila hovered by the window, too proud to sink into the plush seating. The triplets, revived slightly by warmth, nibbled on quick snacks the staff rustled up, curling into her eventually. "Thank you, Harper, truly," she murmured, eyes glistening as relief warred with regret. He nodded, throat tight. This reunion was raw, unfinished. Tomorrow the questions would come. How she'd disappeared, why now, what secrets those 8 years hid. Dawn filtered through the penthouse skylights, but Sheila was already stirring in the lavish guest suite, perched on the bed's edge. She watched Elijah, Ethan, and Alora slumber peacefully for the first time in months, safe, warm, bellies full. Gratitude swelled, but so did dread. What price would this mercy demand? Across the hall in his study, Harper paced sleeplessly. The image of Sheila under that bus stop burned into his thoughts. The woman he'd once envisioned a future with, fierce, talented, unbreakable, reduced to begging? He needed the full story, the pieces that had shattered them both. The penthouse dining room glowed under the soft morning light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, a stark contrast to the rain-soaked Brooklyn street where Sheila Dawson had last stood. The triplets' giggles, Elijah's high-pitched squeal, Ethan's mischievous chuckle, Alora's soft hum, echoed faintly from the hall, pulling Sheila toward the threshold of the dining room. She hesitated, clutching the hem of her borrowed silk robe, the lavish breakfast spread overwhelming her senses. Platters of fresh croissants, glistening fruits, and steaming eggs sprawled across a mahogany table that could seat 20. The scent of brewed coffee mingled with the warmth of baked bread, a luxury she hadn't known in years. Her stomach twisted, not from hunger, but from the weight of this surreal shift. Sheila's bare feet, still chilled from memory, pressed against the polished hardwood. She glanced back at the triplets, now trailing behind, their wide grey-green eyes, Harper's eyes, sparkling with curiosity. Elijah tugged at her hand, pointing at a bowl of strawberries. "Mama, can we eat those?" he whispered, voice tentative, as if the abundance might vanish if he spoke too loudly. "Yes, baby," she murmured, forcing a smile. "Go on." The children scampered to the table, their thin frames swallowed by oversized chairs, their laughter a fragile melody in the cavernous space. For the first time in weeks, they seemed unburdened, their small hands reaching for food without fear of it running out. Sheila's chest tightened. This safety, this warmth, it was everything she'd prayed for them. But at what cost? Harper Robinson stood at the far end of the room, his tailored shirt crisp despite the sleepless night etched in the shadows under his eyes. He watched her silently, his gaze heavy with questions that had lingered for 8 years. The staff moved discreetly, setting plates and pouring juice for the children, their efficiency a quiet hum beneath the tension. Sheila hovered near the doorway, too raw to step fully into this world that wasn't hers. "Sit," Harper said softly, gesturing to a chair across from him. His voice carried the same quiet authority from the night before, but now it was laced with something softer, pleading almost. "Please, Sheila." She nodded stiffly, easing into the seat. The triplets chattered, oblivious to the wait between the adults. Elora smeared jam on her cheek. Ethan tried to stack pancakes into a tower. Sheila's hands trembled as she reached for a glass of water, the crystal cool against her calloused fingers. Harper didn't touch the food. His eyes stayed on her, searching, as if he could unravel the years in her silence. Finally, he leaned forward, elbows on the table, and said, "Tell me everything." The words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through her. Sheila's gaze dropped to her lap, where her fingers twisted together. The triplets' laughter faded to a distant hum as her mind spiraled back, pulling her into the ghosts of the past. 8 years ago, Sheila had been a rising star in Brooklyn's art scene, her vibrant murals catching the eye of gallery owners and critics alike. She and Harper had met at a charity auction, where her bold paintings outshone the sterile corporate art on display. He'd been drawn to her fire, her refusal to bend under the weight of his wealth or name. She'd seen past the billionaire to the man, thoughtful, guarded, hungry for something real. Their connection was electric, a shared rhythm that felt like destiny. Until it wasn't. 3 months after their last night together, a quiet evening sketching in her loft, his laughter warm against her shoulder, she discovered she was pregnant. Elation turned to dread as weeks passed without a word from Harper. She called, left voicemails, sent letters to his office at Robinson Global. Nothing. Desperate, she'd gone to his Manhattan headquarters, only to be stopped at the lobby by a cold-eyed assistant who said Harper was unavailable. Then came the visit that shattered her. Charles Robinson, Harper's father, arrived at her studio unannounced, his presence filling the small space like a storm cloud. "You're a liability," he'd said, his voice sharp as cut glass. Harper's moved on. A black artist, pregnant with his bastard children? He'd be ashamed. Take this and disappear. He slid an envelope across her table. $50,000 in cash. "It's more than you're worth." Sheila had recoiled, tears burning. He wouldn't say that. He loved me. Charles's laugh was cruel. "Love? My son's destined for greatness, not some charity case. He told me himself. He wants nothing to do with you or your shame." The words broke her. She'd trusted Harper, believed in their future. But doubt crept in, his silence, the unreturned letters, the assistant's dismissal. Had she misread him? Had his world, his family, always been a wall she couldn't climb? She took the money, not out of greed, but survival. She fled to a small apartment upstate, determined to raise her babies alone. The triplets, Elijah, Ethan, Elora, arrived premature, their tiny cries filling her with fierce love. But the money dwindled fast. Medical bills piled up. Commissions dried as galleries labeled her unreliable post-pregnancy. She painted when she could, selling pieces on street corners, but the art world moved on. By year 5, she was back in Brooklyn, scraping by in shelters, her pride eroded by hunger and the need to feed 3 growing children. Every canvas she sold felt like a piece of her soul chipped away, but she clung to the hope that one day Harper might see her work and remember. Back in the penthouse, Sheila's voice trembled as she spoke, the words spilling out in halting bursts. I tried to reach you, Harper. I called, wrote, showed up at your office. Your assistant turned me away. Then your father came. She swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the table. He said you'd moved on, that you didn't want the babies, that I was a mistake you were ashamed of. Harper's face paled, his hands clenching the edge of the table. My father? The name was a hiss, venomous. What did he say exactly? Sheila's eyes glistened, but she held his gaze. He said you told him to make me go away, that a poor black artist with your kids would ruin your family's name. He gave me money to disappear. I believed him, Harper. I thought you'd rejected us. The air thickened, the triplets chatter a distant hum. Harper's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching as he processed the betrayal. His father, Charles Robinson, the man who'd shaped his life with an iron fist, had orchestrated this theft of his future. The realization hit like a physical blow, his chest heaving as he stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. He lied to you, Harper said, voice raw. I never knew, Sheila. I never got your calls, your letters. I thought you'd left because, he stopped throat tight, because you didn't want me. Sheila's sob broke the silence, a sound so raw it pierced him. I wanted you every day, she whispered. But I was alone, pregnant, scared. I thought I was protecting you by leaving. Harper paced to the window, the Manhattan skyline blurring through his burning eyes. His father's voice echoed in his memory. Lectures about image, legacy, the right kind of partner. He'd fought those expectations, loved Sheila fiercely for defying them. But Charles had won, manipulating them both, stealing 8 years, 3 children, a life they could have had. He turned back to her, voice breaking. You should have been my family. Sheila's lips trembled, her guard still up despite the tears. It's too late for should-have-beens, Harper. She glanced at the triplets, now quietly coloring napkins with crayons the staff had provided. I survived for them. That's all I had. Harper sank back into his chair, closer now, his hand hovering near hers but not touching. You're not alone anymore, he said, the words a vow. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm not letting you go again. Sheila's eyes searched his, torn between hope and fear. The triplets, sensing the shift, looked up, Elijah's curious tilt, Ethan's cautious stare, Alora's shy smile. They were a mirror of both their parents, a bridge across the lost years. Harper's heart ached with the weight of what he'd missed, what his father's cruelty had cost. The breakfast plates sat untouched between them, the feast a silent witness to their unraveling. Harper's mind churned, anger at Charles, guilt for not fighting harder to find her, and a fierce resolve to make this right. Sheila, too, sat in her own storm, the luxury around her a mocking reminder of how far she'd fallen. Yet the warmth in Harper's eyes a flicker of something she'd thought long dead. That night, after tucking the triplets into their new beds, each with a stuffed animal from the staff, their tiny faces peaceful, Harper stood alone on his penthouse balcony. The city glittered below, indifferent to the war inside him. In his hand was an old photo, creased and faded. Him and his father at a corporate gala, Charles's proud smirk a stark contrast to Harper's forced smile. The man who'd controlled his life had orchestrated its greatest loss. You destroyed her life, Harper whispered to the photo, voice trembling with rage and grief. You destroyed mine. The wind carried his words into the dark, unanswered. But the questions lingered, sharp as the city lights. How could he rebuild what was broken? And would Sheila, scarred by years of survival, ever let him try? The Manhattan skyline glittered like a promise beyond the penthouse balcony, but Harper Robinson stood in its shadow, the weight of his father's betrayal a cold stone in his chest. The faded photo of Charles Robinson lay crumpled in his fist, its edges biting into his palm as he stared into the night. Sheila's words from breakfast echoed, her tearful confession, the years stolen by lies, the triplets he never knew. His father's cruelty had carved a chasm between them, but Harper's resolve hardened like steel. He would rebuild what was broken, no matter the cost. Inside, the penthouse hummed with quiet life. The triplets, Elijah, Ethan, and Alora, slept soundly in their guest suite, their soft breaths a fragile reminder of what he'd gained and lost. Sheila, too, had retreated, her guarded eyes haunting him. He couldn't erase the past, but he could shape the future. Harper pulled out his phone, dialing his assistant, Clara, despite the late hour. "Clara," he said, voice low but firm. "From now on, Miss Dawson and her children are my priority. No one, no board member, no press, no one, gets access to them without my say. Absolute secrecy. Understood?" Clara's voice crackled with surprise, but complied. "Yes, Mr. Robinson. I'll handle it. Start tomorrow," he continued. "I want a wing of the mansion prepared, living quarters, playrooms, an art studio for Sheila. Hire tutors for the kids, pediatric specialists, whatever they need. Move fast." He hung up before she could ask questions, his mind already racing ahead. The penthouse was temporary. His Long Island mansion would be their sanctuary. Sheila deserved more than a guest suite. She deserved a home. The triplets deserved stability, laughter, a chance to be children. And he deserved the ache in his chest, the guilt that gnawed for not finding her sooner. But guilt alone wouldn't fix this. Action would. By dawn, Clara's efficiency was in motion. Movers and designers descended on the mansion, transforming a quiet wing into a haven. Harper oversaw every detail from his office, approving blueprints for a sunlit playroom with shelves for books and toys, a classroom for tutors, and a spacious studio for Sheila, its walls bare for her to fill with color. He imagined her painting again, her hands steady with purpose, the fire he'd loved reigniting. When Sheila and the triplets arrived that afternoon, driven from the penthouse in a discreet SUV, the mansion's sprawling grounds seemed to swallow them. Sheila stepped out, her worn jacket stark against the manicured lawns, clutching Alora's hand while Elijah and Ethan scampered ahead, awestruck by the fountain in the driveway. Harper met them at the entrance, his tailored suit a contrast to their mismatched clothes, but his smile was soft, unguarded. "Welcome," he said, gesturing inside. "This is for you, all of you." Sheila's brow furrowed, her lips parting in protest. "Harper, this is too much. I don't want charity." He held her gaze, unflinching. "It's not charity, Sheila. It's a debt I intend to pay." Her eyes flickered, pride warring with desperation. She glanced at the triplets, who were already tugging at a staff member's hand, eager to explore. "I can't pay you back for this," she said quietly, voice thick. "Not ever." "You don't have to," Harper replied, stepping closer. "Just let me do this. For them. For you." Sheila nodded, reluctance etched in her posture, but she followed him inside. The triplets' gasps filled the air as they discovered their new space. A playroom bursting with color, stuffed animals lining the shelves, a low table stacked with crayons and paper. Elijah dove for a toy truck, Ethan climbed a beanbag, and Elora shyly traced a finger over a picture book. Their laughter bounced off the high ceilings, a sound that made Harper's chest ache with something like hope. "Mr. H." Elijah called suddenly, holding up the truck with a grin. "Look at this." Harper froze, the nickname catching him off guard. Ethan echoed it, giggling. "Yeah, Mr. H, come play." Elora peeked from behind her book, her smile tentative but warm. Sheila's lips twitched, a flicker of amusement breaking through her guarded expression. "Mr. H, huh?" Harper said, crouching to Elijah's level. "I like it." The name stuck, a small bridge between stranger and family, and Harper clung to it like a lifeline. Over the next few days, he watched the triplets settle in, their wariness softening with each new discovery. Tutors arrived, patient women who taught them letters and numbers, coaxing smiles with gentle encouragement. A pediatrician checked their health, prescribing vitamins to counter years of scarcity. Harper lingered in doorways, memorizing their quirks. Elijah's bold questions, Ethan's mischievous streak, Elora's quiet observance. But it was Sheila who drew him most. She spent hours in the studio he'd built, hesitant at first, as if the blank canvases might judge her. Harper would find excuses to pass by, watching through the glass door as her hands moved, tentative strokes giving way to bold sweeps of color. One afternoon, he lingered longer, captivated by the way her brow furrowed in concentration, paint smudging her cheek. She was painting a mural, a vibrant cityscape, Brooklyn's grit softened by bursts of light. It was her, the Sheila he'd loved, reclaiming herself stroke by stroke. "You're staring," she said without turning, her voice teasing but guarded. Harper chuckled, caught. "Can't help it. You're you again." She paused, brush hovering, and glanced at him. "I don't know who that is anymore." "You'll find her," he said softly. "She's still there." Sheila's eyes held his, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through, but she turned back to the canvas without replying. Harper didn't push. He knew her trust would come slowly, if at all. The weight of his father's lies still hung between them, a ghost neither could banish. Nights were harder. Alone in his study, Harper wrestled with shame. Shame for believing Sheila had left willingly, for not questioning his father's control, for the years he'd spent building an empire while she fought to survive. He'd check on the triplets before bed, their small forms tucked under soft blankets, and wonder what milestones he'd missed. First steps, first words, first fears. The guilt was a blade, sharp and unrelenting. Yet the house felt alive now. The triplets' laughter-filled breakfasts, their footsteps a constant rhythm. One evening, Harper joined them in the playroom, sprawling on the rug as Ethan drove, a toy car over his legs. Elijah narrated a wild story about pirates, and Elora shyly offered him a crayon-drawn picture of a house. "It's us," she whispered, pointing to 4 stick figures, 3 small, 1 tall. "Mr. H." Harper's throat tightened. He ruffled her curls, tucking the drawing into his pocket. "It's perfect, Elora." Sheila watched from the doorway, her expression unreadable. Harper caught her gaze, hoping for a crack in her armor, but she turned away, retreating to her studio. He let her go, knowing her wounds ran deeper than his could touch. Days blended into weeks, the mansion transforming into something like a home. Harper worked from his study, balancing corporate calls with stolen moments, watching the triplets chase each other in the garden, or Sheila lose herself in paint. Her sketches began to pile up, vivid, raw, a testament to her resilience. He wanted to tell her how proud he was, how her strength humbled him, but the words felt too heavy, too soon. One evening, restless, Harper wandered to the studio after the triplets were asleep. The door was ajar, soft light spilling into the hall. Sheila sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by scattered pencils, sketching intently. Harper leaned against the frame, silent, until he saw what she was drawing. Him, seated on the playroom rug, the triplets climbing over him, their faces alight with joy. The lines were tender, capturing a warmth he hadn't dared hope for. She sensed him and froze, her hand jerking. Before he could speak, she tore the sketch in half, the sound sharp in the quiet. "Don't," she said, voice trembling as she stood, scraps falling to the floor. "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" Harper asked, stepping closer, his heart pounding. "Like you think this changes anything?" Her eyes were wet, fierce. "I'm not that girl anymore, Harper. I'm not your muse, your redemption story. I'm just trying to keep my kids safe." He stopped, hands raised, voice soft. "I know. I'm not asking you to be anything but you. I just want to make this right, for them, for you." Sheila's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of her. "You can't fix 8 years," she whispered, turning away. "You can't fix me." Harper watched her retreat, the torn sketch a jagged wound between them. He knelt, gathering the pieces, their edges soft under his fingers. Back in his study, he taped them together, the image incomplete but precious. He leaned against the window, the city a distant hum, and whispered to the empty room. "You don't owe me love. Just a chance to make it right." The words hung in the air, a vow and a prayer, as the mansion slept around him. Sheila's walls were high, her trust a fragile thread, but Harper's resolve was unshakable. This was only the beginning. The night air pressed against Harper Robinson's study window, the taped-together sketch of him, and the triplets a quiet sentinel on his desk. Sheila's torn portrait, now mended, was a fragile symbol of the trust he was fighting to earn. Her words, "You can't fix 8 years," echoed in his mind, sharp but not final. Harper's resolve burned brighter than ever. He couldn't erase the past, but he could carve a path forward, one where Sheila's talent, her fire, would shine again. The mansion slept, its halls alive with the faint echoes of the triplets' laughter, but Harper was already planning, his visions stretching beyond these walls. Weeks had passed since Sheila and the triplets, Elijah, Ethan, and Alora, settled into the Long Island mansion. The children's chatter filled the days, their nicknames for him, Mr. H, a daily warmth that softened the edges of his guilt. Sheila, though, remained a guarded flame, painting in her studio late into the night, her hands rediscovering purpose, but her heart still barricaded. Harper watched her from a distance, respecting her space, but every stroke of her brush fueled his determination. She wasn't just surviving, she was rebuilding, and he would give her the platform she deserved. In his office, Harper finalized plans for a new venture, the Robinson Art Initiative, a philanthropic branch of Robinson Global dedicated to underprivileged artists. It was more than a corporate move. It was personal. He envisioned studios, grants, and showcases to lift voices the art world often ignored, voices like Sheila's. Without telling her, he gathered her recent sketches, raw, vibrant cityscapes and tender portraits of the triplets, and submitted them under the alias S. Dawn to the initiative's inaugural showcase. Her work, he knew, would speak for itself. Days turned to weeks, and Sheila's studio became her sanctuary. Harper would pass by, catching glimpses of her lost in creation, paint smudging her fingers, her brow furrowed with focus. One evening, Elijah burst into the playroom, waving a drawing of his own, a colorful scribble of Mommy's pictures. "They're going to be on the big wall, right, Mr. H?" he asked, eyes wide. Harper grinned, ruffling his curls. "The biggest wall, buddy." He didn't elaborate, but the triplets' excitement was infectious. Ethan and Alora joined in, chattering about Mommy's pictures as they helped Sheila carry canvases to the studio, their small hands smudged with paint from helping. Sheila laughed, a rare, unguarded sound that made Harper's heart lurch. She was coming back to life, stroke by stroke. Each night, after tucking the triplets into bed, Sheila painted. Her work grew bolder. Murals of Brooklyn's grit bathed in hope, abstracts that pulsed with loss and resilience. Harper watched her confidence bloom, subtle but undeniable. She began to hum softly as she worked, old jazz tunes from their past. And once, when she thought no one was watching, she danced with a paintbrush in hand, swaying to a rhythm only she could hear. Harper lingered in the doorway, unseen, his chest tight with awe. This was the Sheila he'd loved, the artist who turned pain into beauty. The triplets, too, thrived. Tutors filled their mornings with lessons, but afternoons were for play, racing through the mansion's gardens, building forts in the playroom, calling Mr. H whenever Harper appeared. He joined them when he could, sprawling on the grass as Ethan narrated wild stories. Alora braided daisies into his hair, and Elijah challenged him to race to the fountain. Their trust was a gift, fragile but growing, and Harper clung to it, even as Sheila's walls remained. One morning, Clara delivered the news. Dawn had been selected as the centerpiece for the Robinson Art Initiative's Gala, a high-profile event in Manhattan's art district. Harper's heart raced. He'd kept Sheila's involvement secret, knowing she'd refuse if she knew. Her pride was fierce, her wounds raw from years of rejection. But this was her moment, and he'd make sure the world saw her. The gala loomed, and Harper orchestrated every detail. Invitations to critics, collectors, and philanthropists, a venue draped in elegance, and a stage for Sheila's work to shine. He told her only that the initiative was launching, inviting her to attend as a guest. "Bring the kids," he said casually, masking his nerves. "It'll be a fun night." Sheila hesitated, smoothing Alora's curls. "I don't belong at fancy galas, Harper." "You belong anywhere you want to be," he replied, his tone gentle but firm. "Just come. For me." She nodded, reluctance softening, and Harper exhaled. The triplets squealed about dressing fancy, and Sheila's faint smile was enough to keep him going. The gala night arrived, a crisp autumn evening that turned Manhattan into a glittering stage. The venue, a sleek gallery in Chelsea, buzzed with anticipation. Chandeliers cast golden light over Sheila's canvases, displayed on towering walls, her cityscapes glowing with life, her portraits of the triplets radiating love. Harper, in a tailored black tuxedo, stood near the entrance, his pulse unsteady as he watched guests arrive. Sheila entered last, her simple black dress, borrowed from the mansion's stylist, hugging her frame, the triplets in matching outfits clutching her hands. Elijah tugged at his bow tie, Ethan gaped at the crowd, and Alora clung shyly to Sheila's side. "You okay?" Harper whispered, offering his arm. Sheila nodded, her eyes scanning the room, uneasy but curious. "This is a lot." "Just wait," he said, a spark in his gaze. She frowned, sensing something, but followed him inside. The gala unfolded with speeches and toasts, the crowd murmuring over Dawn's work. Critics praised the raw emotion. Collectors whispered about bids. Sheila stood quietly, sipping sparkling water, unaware that the painting's drawing gasps were hers. The triplets, restless, played near a sculpture, their giggles a soft counterpoint to the room's hum. Then came the main event. Harper stepped onto the stage, the spotlight hot on his face. The crowd hushed, eyes on the billionaire whose name carried the night. He cleared his throat, voice steady but charged with emotion. The Robinson Art Initiative was born to lift voices the world often overlooks, he began. Tonight, we celebrate an artist whose work embodies resilience, beauty, and truth. The artist behind these pieces isn't a mystery. She's here with us. A murmur rippled through the room. Sheila stiffened, her glass trembling. Harper's gaze found hers, unwavering. The artist is Sheila Dawson. The crowd gasped, heads turning. Cameras flashed, their glare catching Sheila's stunned expression. She froze, her breath catching as the room's attention pinned her in place. The triplets looked up, confused but sensing the moment's weight. Harper stepped off the stage, moving toward her through the crowd, his hand extended. Sheila isn't a charity case, he said, his voice carrying over the murmurs, clear and proud. She's the heart of this project. Her work, her story, is why we're here. The room erupted in applause, a standing ovation that thundered through the gallery. Sheila's eyes glistened, her hand gripping Harper's as he reached her. "You did this?" she whispered, voice breaking. "I just gave you the stage," he murmured back, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "You did the rest." Tears spilled down her cheeks, gratitude, disbelief, a flood of emotions she couldn't name. Elijah tugged at her dress, beaming. "Mommy, they love your pictures." Ethan and Alora clapped, caught up in the crowd's energy, their pride a mirror of Harper's. Sheila turned to the canvases, seeing her work anew, her pain, her love, her survival, now celebrated by strangers. Critics approached, praising her technique. Collectors offered cards, eager for more. She nodded, dazed, her hand still in Harper's as he guided her through the crowd. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a beggar, not as a failure, but as the artist she'd always been. The night blurred into a montage of light and sound. Sheila answered questions with growing confidence, her voice steadying as she spoke of her process, her inspirations, the triplets, the streets, the hope that kept her going. Harper stayed close, deflecting pushy reporters, his presence a quiet anchor. The triplets, now with a nanny nearby, munched on gala snacks, their chatter about Mommy's big night, a melody in the chaos. As the event wound down, Sheila stood before her largest canvas, a mural of a Brooklyn street, its grit softened by sunlight, 3 small figures dancing in the foreground. Harper joined her, his shoulder brushing hers. "You did this," he said softly. "Not me." She shook her head, tears falling freely now. "I couldn't have without you." He smiled, the weight of her words settling deep. "You'll never have to again." They stood in silence, the crowd's hum fading, the painting a testament to their shared past and uncertain future. Sheila's hand lingered in his, a fragile connection, but one that held. By morning, the headlines exploded across social media and newsstands. Billionaire's mysterious protege, homeless mother turned art star. Photos of Sheila, radiant in her borrowed dress, splashed across screens, her paintings trending, her story viral. Reporters speculated about her past, her connection to Harper, but the truth was theirs alone, for now. In the mansion, As the triplets slept and Sheila stared at her phone, the world's applause both thrilled and terrified her. What came next? The morning sun spilled through the Long Island mansion's windows, casting golden streaks across the hardwood floors where Sheila Dawson stood, phone in hand, scrolling through the headlines that had erupted overnight. Billionaire's mysterious protégé, homeless mother turned art star. The words felt like a dream. Her face splashed across news feeds, her paintings trending, her story a wildfire in the public's imagination. Elijah, Ethan, and Alora were still asleep upstairs, their soft snores a grounding rhythm, but Sheila's heart raced with a mix of awe and dread. The gala had been a triumph, Harper's belief in her a lifeline, but the world's spotlight burned hotter than she'd expected. She glanced at the mural she'd painted, Brooklyn's streets, her children dancing in sunlight, and wondered if this newfound visibility came at a cost. Harper, in his study, was already fielding calls. The Robinson Art Initiative's launch had sent Robinson Global's stock soaring, but the media frenzy over Sheila's story stirred whispers among the board. He paced, tie loosened, as his assistant Clara relayed updates. Reporters digging for dirt, investors curious about Dawn's past. Harper's jaw tightened. He'd known the scrutiny would come, but he hadn't anticipated the storm brewing closer to home. The mansion's intercom buzzed, sharp and intrusive. Clara's voice crackled through. "Mr. Robinson, your father's here." "He's insistent." Harper froze, his grip on the phone tightening. Charles Robinson, the man who'd orchestrated Sheila's disappearance 8 years ago, hadn't set foot in this house in years. The timing was no coincidence. "Send him to my office," Harper said, voice low, steel in every syllable. He straightened his jacket, bracing for the confrontation he'd always known was coming. Sheila, sensing the shift in the air, set her phone down and moved toward the hallway. The triplets were with their tutor in the playroom, their laughter a faint echo, but the mansion's warmth felt fragile now. She lingered near the staircase, catching Clara's tense expression as an older man stormed through the foyer. Charles Robinson's presence was commanding. Silver hair, tailored suit, eyes like cold granite. Sheila's breath caught. She'd faced him once before, in her cramped studio, when he'd crushed her with money and lies. Instinct urged her to retreat, but curiosity and fear kept her rooted. In the office, Charles didn't sit. He stood, hands clasped behind his back, his voice a blade. "You're risking the family empire for a woman who ruined your reputation once, Harper. Have you lost your mind?" Harper leaned against his desk, arms crossed, his calm a deliberate shield. "She didn't ruin me. You did." The words hung heavy, a spark in a room primed to ignite. Charles's eyes narrowed, his lip curling. "You think this beggar and her brood are worth throwing away everything I built? Robinson Global is a legacy, not a playground for your charity cases." Harper's fists clenched, but his voice stayed even, cutting deeper for it. "Legacy? You mean control. You lied to her, father. You told her I wanted her gone, that I was ashamed of her, ashamed of my children. You stole 8 years of my life." Charles scoffed, pacing now, his polished shoes clicking against the floor. "I protected you. She was a nobody, a black artist with no prospects, dragging you down with her. You think the board, the investors, the world would have respected you with her on your arm? With those children tainting the Robinson name." The venom in his words hit Harper like a physical blow, but it was the racism, the classism, that burned hottest. He stepped forward, closing the distance, his voice low and dangerous. Those children are my blood. Your grandchildren. And Sheila? She's more than you'll ever understand. Stronger than you, stronger than me. You didn't protect me. You sabotaged me. Outside the office, Sheila pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding. She'd crept closer, drawn by the raised voices, and now each word was a dagger. Nobody, tainting the Robinson name. Charles's disdain echoed the rejection she'd carried for years, the shame that had driven her to disappear. Her hands trembled, the urge to flee rising. She couldn't let Harper's world crumble because of her. Not again. The triplets deserved this safety, but at what cost to him? Inside, Charles's face reddened, his voice rising. You're a fool, Harper. The press is already sniffing around her past, shelters, poverty, a single mother with no pedigree. You think they'll celebrate your little fairy tale? They'll tear you apart, and the company with you. Harper's laugh was bitter, sharp. Let them try. I don't need your approval or your empire. I need them, Sheila, Elijah, Ethan, Alora. They're my family, not your legacy. Charles slammed a fist on the desk, papers scattering. You're throwing away everything for sentiment. I'll see to it the board cuts you out. You'll be nothing without Robinson Global. Harper stepped closer, unflinching, his eyes burning with a resolve forged in years of suppressed rebellion. Then I'll build something new. Something without your shadow. The air crackled with silence, father and son locked in a stare that held decades of unspoken battles. Charles's breath grew uneven, his hand clutching his chest. You'll regret this, he spat, but his voice faltered, a faint wheeze betraying him. Sheila, still in the hallway, pressed a hand to her mouth, tears stinging. She'd heard enough. Harper's words, my family, echoed, but so did Charles's warning. The headlines, the scrutiny, the risk to Harper's empire, it was all because of her. She slipped back toward the studio, her mind racing. Maybe leaving was the only way to protect him, to keep the triplets safe without dragging him down with them. Harper didn't notice her retreat. He watched his father, the man who'd shaped his life with iron control, sway slightly. Get out, Harper said, voice cold. You've done enough damage. Charles straightened, defiance masking his pallor. This isn't over, he growled, storming toward the door. But as he reached the foyer, he staggered, clutching the wall, his breath ragged. Harper's anger faltered, replaced by a flicker of concern. Clara, he called, rushing forward. Call an ambulance. Sheila, hearing the commotion, paused in the studio doorway. The triplets' laughter drifted from the playroom, oblivious to the chaos. She watched as staff swarmed, Clara dialing frantically, Harper kneeling beside his father. Charles's face was ashen, his hand still gripping his chest. You did this, he gasped, eyes locked on Harper. Harper's jaw tightened, but he didn't reply, helping the paramedics as they arrived. Sheila stayed back, her heart torn between fear for Harper and the instinct to shield her children. The ambulance's siren faded into the distance, leaving the mansion in eerie quiet. Later, in the hospital waiting room, Harper sat alone, his suit rumpled, his mind a storm. Clara had stayed at the mansion to watch the triplets, and Sheila had insisted on staying behind, her silence heavy with unspoken decisions. The doctor emerged, expression grim. Mr. Robinson, your father has had a mild heart attack. He's stable for now, but his condition is fragile. He may not have long. Harper nodded, the words sinking in like stones. Charles's cruelty had cost him everything. Sheila, his children, years of what could have been. Yet the man was still his father, the only family he'd known until now. The conflict churned, anger, grief, and a strange, hollow pity. Back at the mansion, Sheila paced the studio, her sketches scattered like fragments of her resolve. She'd packed a small bag, ready to slip away with the triplets before the media storm grew worse. But Harper's words from the gala, "She's the heart of this project," and the triplets' laughter, their trust in Mr. H, held her back. She sank to the floor, head in her hands, torn between running and staying. Harper returned at dawn, exhausted but resolute. He found Sheila in the studio, the packed bag a silent accusation. "You're leaving," he said, not a question, his voice raw. She looked up, eyes wet. "I heard him, Harper. Your father. The press, the board, they'll destroy you because of me. I can't let that happen." He crossed the room, kneeling before her, his hands hovering near hers. "Let them try. I meant what I said. I choose you. You and the kids. Not the company, not his legacy." She shook her head, tears falling. "You're giving up everything." "No," he said fiercely. "I'm gaining everything." He pulled the company keys from his pocket, the ones that unlocked Robinson Global's executive suite, and pressed them into Clara's hands when she appeared in the doorway. "Build something new," he told her. "Without his shadow." Clara nodded, understanding the weight of the gesture. Harper turned back to Sheila, his voice soft but unyielding. "Stay. Not for me, for them. For you." Sheila's breath hitched, the bag slipping from her grip. The triplets' voices echoed from the playroom, calling for Mr. H. She nodded, a fragile agreement, but enough. That night, Harper stood in his study, the hospital's words replaying. He may not have long. His father's shadow loomed, but for the first time, Harper felt free. The cost was steep, but the choice was his. Down the hall, Sheila tucked the triplets into bed, their trust in her, and in him, a fragile hope. The headlines would rage, the board would fight, but Harper was ready. For her. For them. The hospital's sterile hum filled the air, a stark contrast to the warmth of the Long Island mansion Harper Robinson had left behind at dawn. The doctor's words from the previous night, "He may not have long," echoed in his mind as he stood outside his father's room in the ICU, the weight of their last confrontation still raw. Charles Robinson's hard attack had shaken the fragile balance Harper had found with Sheila and the triplets, but it also sharpened his resolve. He'd chosen his family, Sheila, Elijah, Ethan, and Alora, over the empire his father had built. Now, facing the man who'd shaped and shattered his life, Harper felt a storm of grief, anger, and something softer, unnameable. Sheila stood in the hospital corridor, a quiet anchor with the triplets huddled close. Elijah clutched a toy truck, Ethan fidgeted with his shoelaces, and Alora leaned against her mother, her grey-green eyes, so like Harper's, watching him with quiet concern. Sheila's presence was a choice, her packed bag left behind in the mansion, a fragile promise to stay. She met Harper's gaze, her expression hesitant but steady. "We'll be here," she said softly, her voice a lifeline. "Go." Harper nodded, his throat tight, and pushed open the door. The room was dim, the rhythmic beep of monitors underscoring the frailty of the man in the bed. Charles Robinson, once a towering figure of control, lay shrunken under thin sheets, his silver hair dull, his breathing shallow. Tubes snaked from his arms, and his eyes, once sharp with judgment, were clouded with fatigue. Harper stood frozen, the weight of decades, lectures, expectations, betrayal, pressing against his chest. Charles stirred, his gaze finding Harper. "You came," he rasped, voice barely above a whisper. Harper pulled a chair close, sitting stiffly. "I had to." His tone was even, but the undercurrent of pain was undeniable. "We're not done." Charles's lips twitched, a ghost of his old smirk. "Always stubborn." He coughed, wincing, then fixed Harper with a look that held something new, regret perhaps. "I only wanted to protect you." Harper's hands clenched in his lap, the words igniting old wounds. "Protect me?" His voice was low, controlled, but each syllable carried years of loss. "You protected me from love, from my children, from her." "That's not protection, Father. That's control." Charles's eyes flickered, a shadow of guilt passing over his face. "You were meant for more," he murmured. "The company, the name, it was everything. She was a risk." "She was my future," Harper shot back, his voice breaking. "Elijah, Ethan, Elora, they're my blood. You told her I was ashamed of them, paid her to disappear. You stole 8 years, and for what? Your legacy?" He leaned forward, eyes burning. "Your legacy is a lie." Charles's breath hitched, his hand trembling as it reached for the bed rail. I thought you'd thank me one day." His voice cracked, the admission raw. "I was wrong." The words hung in the air, fragile and heavy. Harper's anger faltered, replaced by a hollow ache. His father, the man who'd shaped his world with iron and ambition, was just a man now, frail, flawed, facing the end. Harper's throat tightened, memories flashing. Childhood lessons at Charles's desk, rare moments of pride, the constant pressure to be more. He wanted to hate him, but grief was messier than hate. "I needed a father, not a king," Harper said quietly, his voice steady now. "But I'm done living in your shadow." Charles's eyes glistened, a tear slipping free. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words almost lost in the monitor's beep. "For her, for them." Harper swallowed hard, the apology both too late and too much. He reached out, hesitating, then took his father's hand. It was cold, fragile, the grip of a man already slipping away. "I forgive you," Harper said, the words heavy but true. "Not for you, for me." Charles's breathing slowed, his eyes drifting closed. The monitors beeped steadily, then faltered. Harper held on, his chest tight, as the room grew quieter. The end came softly, a final exhale, a stillness that settled like dusk. Charles Robinson was gone. Harper sat there, hands still clasped around his father's, the weight of closure sinking in. Grief mingled with relief, a strange freedom in the silence. He'd lost the man who'd defined his life, but he'd gained something greater, a family he'd fight for. Outside, Sheila stood with the triplets, who were now coloring on hospital notepads, their small hands busy with crayons. She looked up as Harper emerged, his face etched with exhaustion but calm. "He's gone," he said simply, his voice steady but raw. Sheila's eyes softened, and she stepped closer, hesitating before touching his arm. "I'm sorry," she murmured, the words carrying more than condolence, understanding shared loss. Elijah looked up, tilting his head. "Is Mr. H okay, Mama?" Harper managed a small smile, crouching to their level. "I'm okay, buddy. Just saying goodbye." Elora offered him a crumpled drawing, a stick figure family under a bright sun. "For you," she whispered. Harper's heart clenched as he took it, the simple lines a balm to the morning's pain. They returned to the mansion in silence, the triplets dozing in the SUV, Sheila's hand resting near Harper's, but not touching. The weight of the day lingered, but so did a quiet strength. Harper had faced his father, spoken his truth, and let go. The empire Charles had built no longer defined him. That afternoon, a lawyer arrived with Charles's will. Harper met him in the study, Sheila lingering in the doorway, her presence a quiet support. The lawyer's voice was clipped professional. Your father revised his will after your disagreement. He left you nothing, Mr. Robinson. The company, the estate, the assets, they go to the board and a distant cousin. Harper nodded, unsurprised. The sting was there, but it was dull, overshadowed by the clarity of his choice. He thought he could control me, even in death, he said, almost to himself. He was wrong. The lawyer left, and Sheila stepped inside, her eyes searching his. You gave up everything for us, she said, voice low. The company, your legacy. Are you sure? Harper turned to her, his gaze steady. I didn't lose a fortune, Sheila. I found a family. Her breath caught, tears welling as she stepped closer, bridging the gap she'd kept for weeks. She didn't speak, but her hand found his, her fingers curling around his with a warmth that felt like home. For the first time, Harper saw something new in her eyes. Not just gratitude or trust, but a flicker of possibility. That night, after tucking the triplets into bed, Elijah clutching his truck, Ethan sprawled across his pillow, Elora hugging her stuffed bear. Sheila joined Harper in the living room. The fireplace glowed, casting soft shadows over the room. They sat on the couch, a comfortable silence settling between them. Sheila's sketchbook lay on the coffee table, open to a drawing of the triplets laughing in the garden, Harper watching from a distance. You're good at this, she said softly, gesturing to the room, the life he'd built for them. Being their Mr. H. He smiled, the nickname a warmth in his chest. I'm learning. They make it easy. Sheila's lips curved, a rare, unguarded smile. They do. She paused, her voice softer. You didn't have to do this, Harper. Any of it. But you did. He met her gaze, his heart full. I'd do it again. 1,000 times. The moment stretched, fragile but real, a bridge between their past and an uncertain future. Sheila's hand lingered near his, not pulling away. Harper felt the weight of his father's death, the loss of the empire, but also the freedom to build something new. Not for Charles, not for the world, but for them. After Sheila retreated to her studio, Harper stayed up, the mansion quiet around him. He pulled a notebook from his desk, the same one where he'd taped Sheila's torn sketch. His pen moved, sketching not art but plans, ideas for a new venture, one free of his father's shadow. A foundation, perhaps, or a smaller company, one that could support artists like Sheila, give second chances, build futures. He wrote with purpose, the words flowing. For us. The triplets' laughter echoed in his memory, Sheila's touch a lingering warmth. The headlines would keep raging, the board would fight, but Harper was unshackled. His father was gone, his empire lost, but the family he'd found was worth more than gold. As dawn crept through the windows, Harper's pen paused, his eyes on the notebook. A new beginning was taking shape, one he'd build with Sheila and the triplets. A legacy of love, not control. The dawn light filtered through the Long Island mansion's study, casting soft gold across the notebook where Harper Robinson had sketched his vision the night before. The words for us stared back, a vow etched in ink, as the weight of his father's death and disinheritance settled into a strange freedom. Charles Robinson's empire was gone, his control broken, but Harper's heart was full. Sheila Dawson and their triplets, Elijah, Ethan, and Elora, were his legacy now. The mansion hummed with quiet life, The triplets' laughter a distant melody from the playroom. Sheila's paintbrush likely already dancing in her studio. Harper closed the notebook, resolve burning bright. He'd build something new, not for power, but for love. Weeks had passed since Charles's death, and Harper wasted no time. He poured his remaining wealth, personal savings, investments untouched by the board, into a new venture, the Dawson Robinson Foundation. It was a bold pivot, a non-profit dedicated to art, education, and family welfare, designed to uplift those the world overlooked, just as Sheila had been. He worked tirelessly, meeting with advisors, drafting charters, envisioning community centers where artists could create, children could learn, and families could heal. The foundation's name was deliberate. Dawson First, a tribute to Sheila's strength, her survival, her art. Sheila, initially hesitant, found herself drawn into the vision. Harper offered her the role of leading the art division, a position that would oversee grants, workshops, and showcases for underprivileged artists. "You're the heart of this," he told her one morning in her studio, surrounded by canvases that pulsed with her reclaimed fire. "This isn't charity, it's your legacy too." Sheila's eyes had flickered with doubt, her hands smudged with paint. "I'm not a leader, Harper. I'm just me." "You're more than enough," he said, his voice soft but certain. "You always were." She nodded, a spark of confidence igniting. Over the weeks, Sheila bloomed into the role. She met with artists, shared her story, and designed programs that gave others the chances she'd been denied. Her studio became a hub of activity. Canvases stacked against walls, sketches pinned up, her laughter mingling with the triplets as they helped with stray paintbrushes. Harper watched her, awestruck, as she stood taller, her voice surer, her eyes brighter. The woman who'd once huddled under a bus stop was now a force, her art a beacon for others. Their relationship deepened, a quiet unfolding that felt as natural as breathing. It began in small moments, shared glances over breakfast, her hand brushing his as they tucked the triplets into bed, late-night talks by the fireplace where words flowed easier than they had in years. One evening, as rain pattered against the mansion's windows, Sheila leaned against Harper's shoulder, her sketchbook open to a drawing of the triplets playing in the garden. "I used to dream of nights like this," she murmured. "Safe, warm, with you." Harper's heart swelled, and he tilted her chin gently, meeting her eyes. "I'm here now. For good." Their first kiss was soft, tentative, a promise sealed in the firelight. It wasn't the passion of their youth, but something deeper, love rebuilt on trust, not dreams. The triplets, too, sensed the shift. Their trust in Mr. H had grown, but one morning, as Harper helped Elijah tie his shoes, the boy looked up, grinning. "Can we call you Dad?" The word hit Harper like a wave, warm and overwhelming. Ethan and Elora echoed it, their voices shy but eager. "Dad," Elora tested, her smile blooming. Sheila, watching from the doorway, wiped a tear, nodding silently. "Dad it is," Harper said, voice thick, pulling them into a hug. The word was a gift, a bridge across the years he'd missed, and he carried it like a treasure. The Dawson Robinson Foundation gained momentum, its mission resonating far beyond New York. Harper's decision to walk away from Robinson Global had sparked whispers, but the Foundation's work, Sheila's art, the community programs, the focus on families, shifted the narrative. A local journalist, moved by Sheila's gala showcase, produced a short documentary, interviewing artists the Foundation had supported, children in its after-school programs, and Sheila herself, her voice steady as she spoke of resilience. Harper, too, shared his story, unpolished and raw. The billionaire who'd chosen love over legacy. The video went viral, flooding the internet with headlines. The billionaire who chose love over legacy. Social media buzzed with clips of Sheila's murals, the triplets giggling in the mansion's garden, Harper speaking at a foundation event, his eyes alight with purpose. Critics who'd once questioned his judgment now praised his compassion. Investors who'd shunned him sent inquiries about partnerships. Harper's reputation, once tied to his father's empire, was reborn as a symbol of integrity, a man who'd traded wealth for something greater. Sheila's art became the foundation's heartbeat. Her murals adorned community centers. Her workshops inspired artists from Brooklyn to the Bronx, and her story, once a tabloid headline, became a testament to second chances. She painted with a ferocity Harper hadn't seen since their youth, her canvases bold with color and truth. One evening, he found her in the studio, finishing a portrait of the triplets, their faces radiant against a backdrop of city lights. "They're my why," she said, catching his reflection in the glass. "Always will be." Harper stepped closer, his hand resting on her shoulder. "And you're mine." Their days settled into a rhythm of purpose and love. Mornings began with the triplets' chatter, breakfasts filled with sticky fingers and laughter. Sheila led foundation meetings with growing confidence, her ideas shaping its future. Harper worked alongside her, his business acumen grounding her creativity, their partnership a balance of strength and heart. Evenings were for family, story time with the triplets, quiet moments with Sheila, her paint-stained hands entwined with his. The world watched, captivated. The viral video sparked invitations to speak, to share their story, but Harper and Sheila kept it simple, focusing on the work, the children, each other. The mansion, once a sterile monument to wealth, was alive with color. Sheila's sketches on the fridge, the triplets' toys scattered across the lawn, laughter echoing through halls once silent. One night, as autumn leaves drifted outside, Harper sat with Sheila on the living room couch, the triplets asleep upstairs. The fireplace crackled, casting a warm glow over her sketchbook, open to a new drawing. A family under a starlit sky, 5 figures hand in hand. Harper took her hands, paint smudging his fingers, and looked into her eyes, soft brown and steady now. "Your art saved me," he said, voice low fervent. "Not just now, back then too. You showed me what mattered, what was real. I was lost without you." Sheila's breath hitched, tears glistening. "You found me," she whispered. "When I was nothing, you saw me." "You were never nothing," he said, pulling her close. "You were everything." They kissed, the moment sealing a love that had survived years of pain, a love that was building a future. Sheila's hands, stained with paint, pressed against his chest, her heartbeat steady against his. The world outside could wait. Their family, their foundation, their love was enough. As winter approached, Harper began planning a surprise for their anniversary. The day he'd found her under that Brooklyn bus stop, rain-soaked and shivering, a year ago. He kept it secret, sketching ideas in his notebook late at night, a smile tugging at his lips. It wasn't a gala or a grand gesture, but something intimate, something that would honor Sheila, the triplets, and the life they were building. The foundation was thriving, their love deepening, the triplets' laughter a daily gift. But Harper wanted more, a moment to mark their journey, to promise forever. The cliffhanger hung in the air, unspoken but bright. What would Harper's surprise be? As he tucked his notebook away, the mansion quiet around him, he knew it would be a new beginning, one painted in love, not legacy. The Long Island mansion glowed softly under the early winter dusk, its warmth a haven for Harper Robinson, Sheila Dawson, and their triplets, Elijah, Ethan, and Elora. The Dawson-Robinson Foundation had taken root, its mission of art, education, and family welfare blossoming across New York, with Sheila's murals as its beating heart. Their love, once fractured by lies and years apart, had deepened into something unshakable, grounded in quiet moments and the triplets' joyful cries of Dad. Harper's notebook, filled with plans for their future, now held a secret, a surprise for the anniversary of the rainy Brooklyn night that had reunited them. As he tucked the triplets into bed, their sleepy smiles warmed him, but his mind was on tomorrow, a day that would seal their story. The next morning, Harper woke early, nerves tingling as he checked the velvet box in his pocket. He'd planned every detail, but the weight of the moment felt bigger than any boardroom deal. Sheila joined him at breakfast, her paint-smudged hands brushing his as she passed the orange juice, her smile soft but curious. "You're up to something," she teased, catching the spark in his eyes. "Just a little outing," Harper said, grinning. "Dress warm. Bring the kids." Sheila raised an eyebrow but didn't press, her trust in him a quiet gift. The triplets bounded in, chattering about snowflakes and hot cocoa, their excitement infectious. Harper herded them into the SUV, Sheila beside him, her hand resting lightly on his knee. The drive into Brooklyn was quiet, the city's skyline softening under a light dusting of snow. The triplets pressed their faces to the windows, pointing at holiday lights, while Harper stole glances at Sheila, her profile serene against the winter glow. Their destination was the Robinson Arts Center, a gleaming glass building that had risen on the site of that rain-soaked bus stop where Harper had found Sheila a year ago. The center, funded by the Dawson-Robinson Foundation, bore her name in bold letters above the entrance, Sheila Dawson Arts Wing. It was a hub for artists, children, and families, a testament to her resilience and his redemption. Harper had kept the grand opening low-key, wanting this moment to be theirs before the world claimed it. As they stepped out, the triplets gasped, their breath puffing in the cold air. "It's so big," Elijah shouted, tugging Ethan toward the glass doors. Elora clung to Sheila's hand, her eyes wide. "Is this yours, Mama?" she asked, voice hushed with awe. Sheila froze, reading the sign, her hand trembling in Harper's. You named it after me?" Her voice cracked, eyes glistening as she turned to him. Harper nodded, his throat tight. "It's always been you, Sheila. This is your legacy." She blinked back tears, squeezing his hand, and followed the triplets inside. The center's atrium soared, its glass ceiling catching the winter light like a prism. Murals, Sheila's murals, lined the walls, their vibrant colors telling stories of struggle and hope. The triplets ran through the halls, their laughter echoing off polished floors, chasing each other past art studios and classrooms buzzing with activity. Elijah spun in circles, Ethan peeked into a pottery room, and Elora paused to trace a mural's lines, her small fingers reverent. Harper guided Sheila through the space, pointing out details. The children's art corner, the scholarship office, the gallery where her work would inspire others. "This is what we're building," he said softly. "Not just for us, for everyone who needs a second chance." Sheila's eyes shone, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd have this. Because of you. He shook his head, pulling her close. Because of you. Your art, your strength, it's the heart of this place. They reached the central gallery, a circular room where Sheila's largest mural hung. A breathtaking cityscape of Brooklyn, its grit softened by sunlight, 3 small figures dancing in the foreground, unmistakably Elijah, Ethan, and Elora. A small crowd had gathered, local artists, foundation staff, a few reporters invited for the opening. But Harper's focus was on Sheila, the triplets, and the moment he'd planned. He led them to the mural's base, where a small platform stood, decorated with fairy lights and winter flowers. The triplets giggled, sensing something special, and Sheila's brow furrowed, her hand tightening in his. Harper turned to face her, his heart pounding, and dropped to one knee. The crowd hushed, cameras clicking softly, but Harper saw only her. Sheila Dawson, he began, his voice steady but thick with emotion. A year ago, I found you under that bus stop, and you changed my world. You and these kids, Elijah, Ethan, Elora. You gave me a reason to be more than I was. He pulled a velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a simple gold ring with 3 small diamonds, sparkling in the gallery's light. One for each heartbeat that brought you back to me. Sheila's breath caught, tears spilling as she covered her mouth. The triplets gasped, clustering close, their eyes wide. Mama, it's a ring, Ethan whispered, tugging her sleeve. Elora clapped, giggling, and Elijah grinned, shouting, Say yes, Mama. Harper's eyes never left hers. I lost you once because of lies, because I didn't fight hard enough. I won't let that happen again. You're my home, my family, my everything. Will you marry me, Sheila? Sheila broke down, sobs shaking her as she knelt to meet him, her hands cupping his face. You found us when we were lost, she whispered, voice trembling with love. Yes, Harper. 1,000 times yes. The crowd erupted in applause, cameras flashing as Harper slid the ring onto her finger, the 3 diamonds catching the light like stars. He pulled her into his arms, their kiss a seal of redemption, love, and promises kept. The triplets piled in, hugging their legs, their laughter mingling with the crowd's cheers. Elijah shouted, Dad's gonna marry Mama. And the room laughed, the joy infectious. Harper stood, lifting Elora onto his shoulder, Sheila's hand in his. The reporters surged forward, but he waved them off gently, his focus on his family. This isn't for the cameras, he said, voice firm but warm. It's for us. Yet the world was watching. By evening, the moment was everywhere. The Billionaire and the Beggar, a proposal for the ages. Clips of Harper's proposal, Sheila's tearful yes, the triplets' joy flooding social media. The story of their reunion, once a tabloid sensation, was now a global testament to love rediscovered. Commenters called it a fairy tale, a redemption arc, a proof that compassion could rewrite lives. The Dawson Robinson Foundation trended alongside, donations pouring in, artists clamoring to join. Back at the mansion, the triplets asleep after a day of excitement, Harper and Sheila sat by the fireplace, her ring glinting as she leaned against him. The headlines played on her phone, but she set it aside, her paint-stained hands entwined with his. They're calling us a story, she said, a wry smile tugging her lips. The Billionaire and the Beggar. Harper chuckled, kissing her forehead. Let them. To me, you're just Sheila, the woman who saved me. She looked up, eyes soft. And you're Harper, the man who gave us a home. They sat in silence, the fire's warmth wrapping them, their love a quiet certainty. The center's opening, the proposal, the world's applause, it was all secondary to this. Their family, whole at last. The ring on Sheila's finger was more than a promise. It was a rebirth, a symbol of the life they'd built from ashes. As they drifted to sleep, Harper's mind flickered to the next surprise. A quiet wedding, perhaps, under the center's glass ceiling, with the triplets as their witnesses. The cliffhanger lingered, unspoken but bright. The ring on her finger was just the beginning. The Brooklyn street shimmered under a late autumn sun, its cracked sidewalks and weathered storefronts softened by a year of transformation. Where a rain-soaked bus stop had once stood, a desperate refuge for Sheila Dawson and her triplets, now sprawled a vibrant mural park, funded by the Dawson-Robinson Foundation. Children laughed as they darted between benches, their voices mingling with the hum of artists sketching and community members gathering for a free workshop. Sheila stood before a blank wall, her paint-stained hands steady, a canvas apron draped over the gentle curve of her pregnant belly. Harper Robinson, her husband, watched from a nearby bench, their triplets, Elijah, Ethan, and Alora, sprawled beside him, their faces smudged with paint from helping their mother. A year had passed since Harper's proposal under the glass ceiling of the Sheila Dawson Arts wing, and their love, once shattered, had rebuilt a world. The mansion, their home, had become a sanctuary of chaos and joy. Mornings echoed with the triplets' laughter, their cries of "Dad," a melody that grounded Harper. Sheila's art flourished, her murals adorning community centers across New York, her workshops empowering artists who, like her, had once been overlooked. The Dawson-Robinson Foundation thrived, its programs for art, education, and family welfare drawing global attention. Donations poured in, inspired by their viral story, The Billionaire and the Beggar. But to Harper and Sheila, it was simply their life, a family forged from pain, love, and second chances. Today, Sheila painted with purpose, her brush sweeping across the Brooklyn wall in bold strokes. The mural was taking shape, a man kneeling before a woman holding 3 children, sunlight bursting behind them in rays of gold and crimson. It was their story, immortalized on the street where it began, a testament to redemption. Harper watched, his heart full, as Elijah handed Sheila a paint roller, Ethan smeared blue on his own cheek, and Alora carefully dipped a brush into yellow, mimicking her mother's movements. The triplets, now 7, were vibrant, their grey-green eyes. Harper's eyes, alight with pride. "You're gonna make the wall pretty, Mama," Alora called, her voice bright. Sheila laughed, a sound that still caught Harper off guard with its warmth. "We all are, baby," she said, ruffling Alora's curls. She glanced at Harper, her smile softening, and he felt the same pull he'd felt a year ago under that bus stop. Love, fierce and unshakable. Their wedding had been quiet, held under the glass ceiling of the Arts Center, just months after the proposal. The triplets had stolen the show, scattering petals and giggling as Harper and Sheila exchanged vows. The world had watched, cameras capturing every tear and smile, but the moment was theirs, Elijah, Ethan, and Alora cheering, Sheila's ring glinting with its 3 diamonds, one for each heartbeat that had brought them back together. Now, with another baby on the way, a surprise discovered in the spring, their family was growing, a new chapter painted in hope. Harper stood, brushing grass from his jeans, and joined Sheila at the wall. The crowd, locals, artists, a few lingering reporters, watched as she painted, but her focus was on the mural, her hands steady with purpose. Harper handed her a can of gold paint, their fingers brushing, a spark passing between them. "It's beautiful," he said, his voice low, meant for her alone. "Just like you." Sheila's cheeks flushed, but she nudged him playfully. "Flatterer, help me with this sunburst." He took a brush, dipping it into the paint, and followed her lead, their strokes blending on the wall. The triplets joined in, their small hands adding messy but heartfelt touches. Elijah's bold streaks, Ethan's chaotic swirls, Elora's careful dots. The mural grew, a vibrant tableau of their journey. The man, kneeling in love, the woman, strong and radiant. The children, a bridge between past and future, and the sunlight, a promise of renewal. The park buzzed with life around them. A group of teens from the Foundation's art program sketched nearby, their laughter mingling with the chatter of families at picnic tables. A community center volunteer handed out flyers for free classes, and a local musician strummed a guitar, the melody weaving through the air. The Dawson Robinson Foundation had transformed this street, once a place of despair, into a beacon of hope. Sheila's murals lined the park, each telling a story of resilience, and today's piece would be the centerpiece, a gift to the community that had witnessed their beginning. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the mural, Sheila stepped back, wiping sweat from her brow. The crowd gathered closer, their murmurs turning to gasps as the image came into focus. The man's silhouette, unmistakably Harper, knelt with quiet reverence. The woman, Sheila, stood tall, her arms around three children whose faces echoed the triplets' joy. The sunlight behind them seemed to pulse, a burst of color that felt alive. A reporter, one of the few invited, raised a camera, capturing the moment. "Mrs. Robinson," she called, "what inspired this?" Sheila hesitated, glancing at Harper, then smiled, her voice steady. "This is us, our family, our story. It's about finding each other when everything seemed lost." The crowd applauded, a warm wave of sound, and Harper's chest tightened with pride. Sheila's confidence, once buried under years of struggle, now shone as brightly as her art. The triplets cheered, Elijah shouting, "That's my mama," while Ethan and Elora clapped, their faces beaming. Harper pulled them close, his arms around all three, and kissed Sheila's temple. "You're incredible," he whispered. She leaned into him, her hand resting on her belly, where their new baby stirred. "We're incredible," she corrected, her voice soft but sure. As dusk settled, the crowd lingered, taking photos, sharing stories. The mural park had become a symbol of their journey, its walls a canvas for second chances. Harper and Sheila stayed until the stars appeared, the triplets dozing on blankets nearby, their paint-smudged hands clutching each other. The reporters had left, their footage already spreading online. The headline, "The Billionaire and the Beggar," a mural of love trending by nightfall. But for Harper and Sheila, the world's applause was background noise. This moment, their family, their art, their love, was enough. Sheila turned to Harper, her eyes catching the starlight. "You really shocked the world, didn't you?" she said, a teasing lilt in her voice, echoing their past. Harper chuckled, pulling her close, his hands framing her face. "No, you did. I just caught up." She laughed, the sound a melody of peace, and kissed him, their lips meeting with the ease of a love-hard one. The mural loomed behind them, its sunlight eternal, a testament to their journey from loss to redemption. The triplets stirred, Elora murmuring "Dad" in her sleep, and Sheila's hand tightened in Harper's, her ring glinting, a symbol of rebirth, of forever. The Dawson Robinson Foundation continued to grow, its impact rippling beyond Brooklyn. Community centers opened in new cities, artists found platforms, children found mentors, families found hope. Sheila led with a quiet strength, her art a beacon for others, while Harper built partnerships, his business acumen now serving a purpose greater than profit. Their story inspired millions, not as a fairy tale, but as proof that love could redeem pain, that compassion could rebuild lives. As they walked back to the SUV, the triplets bundled in their arms, Harper glanced at the mural one last time. The man kneeling, the woman standing, the children laughing. It was their past, their present, their future. Sheila's hand rested on her belly, their unborn child a promise of more love to come. The world would keep watching, but their story was no longer about headlines. It was about the life they'd built, the family they'd found, the legacy they'd created together. The final truth settled in Harper's heart, as clear as the mural's sunlight. Compassion isn't weakness. Sometimes the greatest wealth a man can give is the chance to begin again.